Welcome back to What's the Tea with ACP, a live webcast where we feature artists and chat with them about what's going on in their lives, their art, and their social experiences. I'm Elliott Paige with the tea. I got to tell you what the tea topic of today is. It is a long one. It is interdisciplinari-TEA. Ooh, honey, let me give you that to you again. It's interdisciplinari-TEA. In this edition of What's the Tea, I'll be chatting with soprano, visual artist, and founder of OmniARTS, Amanda Austin. We'll discuss her life as a multifaceted artist, what inspires her music and art production, and discuss how OmniARTS came to fruition. Now, let me give you a little bit of tea about Ms. Amanda Austin, okay? Amanda Austin is a multidisciplinary artist working predominantly in visual mediums and as a classical vocalist. Creating new space for interdisciplinary work, Amanda founded the OmniARTS Foundation, a 501c3 organization dedicated to new media development and interdisciplinary collaboration between artists. At the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, OmniARTS raised $30,000 in support of artists and first responders through the Lean On Me concert series, a 3-part virtual concert series hosted by Grammy Award-winning multi-genre artist Isabel Leonard, Fred Hirsch, and American composers Tom Chippolo and Lori Laitman. Praised for her luminous presence and subtle, honey, not subtle, let me tell you, it's supple as they say, supple soprano with creamy and consistent tonal range. Amanda performs a wide variety of repertoire, from Baroque opera as Callisto in Cavalli's La Callisto to Norina in Don Pasquale, and other new works such as Carolyn Bryant's Emmett Till. Amanda performs a diverse range of opera, oratorio, and concert music. In 2018, Amanda made her professional debut as Pamina in Die Zauberflöte, Isabel and Madeline in The Face on the Bar Room Floor. Do you know how many times I had to practice saying The Face on the Bar Room Floor? It's a weird tongue twister. And Central City Opera's Apprentice Artist Program. Amanda holds a bachelor and master's degree from the Manhattan School of Music, where she received the Stan Sesser Career Grant. With the Manhattan School of Music Opera Theater, Amanda performed the title role in Cendrillon by Nicolas Sarr, which is commercially recorded and nominated for the 2019 Opera Awards Best Revival with Albany Records. In creating Records in 2019, Amanda and her team of collaborators seek new means of sharing vocal work from the classical canon. Records are a live musical performance that yields sculptures and paintings. Recently, Records Dissonance was performed at the Morris Museum, a Smithsonian affiliate in Morristown, New Jersey. This performance, featuring the music of Thomas Tallis and Oliver Messiaen, generated a mixed media painting, sculpture, and film. Please join me in welcoming the amazing, the talented Amanda Austin. Hello.
Hello. Okay, so I need to pay you to read my bio, okay? Because you just gave me all of the life in those adjectives. Your sister was on full display in all of its glory. I love it.
Listen, I'm always like, oh my God, I have to make sure that I read this properly because I always test them out beforehand because I'm like, someone is bound to have some composer that I've never heard of. Child, I gotta Google it. Yours was good. I was like, okay.
Right.
I got it.
Isward is one of those though.
Yeah, I was like,
about that opera, we were like, by who? but it's a pretty piece of music. So yeah,
it's beautiful.
Really fun.
That's the crazy part about that piece, that opera in particular. I feel like so many people know Cendrillon, but they don't know who's it by. Don't know. Now we know.
Right. Yeah, there's Cenerentola, and then there's Ward in like a random quasi-Mozart style. So who knows?
Exactly. Fabulous. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on today. Please,
Happy.
we are so happy to have you and to have you here and talk about all of the different things and different layers and aspects that make you as an artist.
Wow.
It's a really cool thing that you've built and that you're building with the way that you're presenting your art and the way that you are presenting yourself as an artist and also being looked at as an artist. Even by me, I'm looking at, wow, this is such an interesting way to collaborate and interesting way to make art that is not just vocal but also physical.
Yeah.
You're taking the metaphysical part of it and putting it into something with your
Yeah.
hands that can be like looked at afterward, because with a performance, unless you're recording,
Right.
it's there. It's in the ether. It's there. But this,
Nothing you can do. There's no little tweaks. It's gone. Yeah.
Exactly. And so with that, I should probably give the definition of our tea today.
Yes.
So our tea is interdisciplinarity. Try saying that 3 times fast.
Please go.
So it is the quality or fact of involving or drawing on 2 or more branches of knowledge. Interesting, right? I'll read it again. Yeah. It's the quality or fact of involving or drawing on 2 or more branches of knowledge. So I feel like you're drawing on many branches.
Like 2 is the minimal, and that's like the understanding.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I kind of want to hop right in because the questions you have that are going to come up later are really beautiful discussion points. So I would love for you to just give us and us, hey girl, me, to give me a little overview about OmniARTS, about records, and about kind of what you've been up to for the last year during the pandemic. Just kind of firstly, I'll keep it simple. What have you been up to for the last year during the pandemic? How has that been for you?
I mean, it's been hard. Just watching everybody, like watching performances disappear was one thing, but then seeing my friends struggle, and especially like the New York community of artists was just like scattered kind of wayside, and watching all of that happen was really tough. But I have to say, like, I've been really fortunate to be restless and curious, like equally. So I'm kind of always on my own little treadmill over here, like whether I like it or not, like there's no rest over here and zero chill. And I just basically like rewinding kind of back to Baby Amanda. Baby Amanda like loved fine art, and I took kind of private lessons and did portraitures, around my town, and was really doing like hyperrealism, and then did classes and stuff in young artist programs, basically for fine art. And then I discovered in doing musical theater and in getting formal vocal training, opera. I just had no context of that before, growing up in Jersey. It wasn't until I was like 14 that I got introduced to my first art song. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. This is sculpting with air. I don't need a microphone. I could just be the medium. And that's when I was sold. That's when I was completely sold. And so it was weird then going to Manhattan School, because my whole time there, I'm like, I don't know where middle C is, but like I could weld you a copper sculpture. Like, that's not gonna help you here, girl. You're learning skill,
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a long time coming of just like, I feel like there's been certain projects that have been kind of dormant inside of me. And I was doing the young artist program thing, and COVID kind of gave me the permission to really like stop trying to be a part of somebody else's project and to have to focus on my own. I mean, I love collaboration. That's why I created OmniARTS, and that's what I'm about, is putting artists together that like you would have never met if that wasn't the case. And like, what can you guys do? Can you make an animated art song series? Can you can you approach the learning of this aria like a dancer would, the learning of choreography? Can you, just starting to really like think outside of, my teacher told me to do this, and this is the tradition, and this is right. If there's anything about like very exciting, good art making, it's truthful and beautiful. It's not right.
Wow.
And so I feel like COVID in some way was like, gave me permission and was like, just like all you have is time. You do this, be about what you talk about, be about what you believe. And OmniARTS has really allowed me to do that, just to really create a platform. Like Records is my own project. Records is like basically, Angel, hi Angel. Sweetheart, we did magic flute at Central State together. Yeah. It was super creepy. As he should be, for those of you who don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was Records is like my own thing, but with OmniARTS, it's kind of like sky's the limit. Like we're interested in like exploring multidisciplinary dialogues, new projects, technology that's now at our disposal. I think people are much more open to the idea of classical art and multi-layered classical art existing within technological vantage points and gazes. So, I think holograms, NFTs, AR and VR theater, like animation, this is the way of the future as it pertains to art song and as it pertains to opera, I think. And that's not to say that OmniARTS or I or any of our affiliates are trying to throw out the museum, but we're just trying to provide a more digestible like gateway drug to them,
Well, it's one of those things too where it's kind of like, not everyone is gonna feel comfortable or even want to go to some of the spaces where classical music and fine art are showcased. Maybe some people don't feel comfortable, or some people, they just never have, there's many people who just have never been to a museum, right? Like they think, oh my God, it's going to be so boring. And, all of these other, right. Exactly. They don't feel invited. And this is such a great way to like open up the doors and allow people to kind of get in and even maybe get their hands dirty in some cases.
In this case, Records case, let me tell you, yes. When we get back to that, I'll tell you what I mean by that.
So, look at hello to the Gold Barbs.
Oh, and Tony.
We love you
so much.
So I'm wondering, how did you get started with OmniARTS? Because you're the founder, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, I know that you already had like you were saying, you have a background in kind of a way of kind of like mixed media, right? And interdisciplinary studies in a way, interdisciplinary artistic studies.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Disciplines are yeah.
Right. And so I'm wondering, how did you go about like making that happen? Because I mean, it seems like already things are really kind of popping off for the organization. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. OmniARTSFoundation.com. Really amazing stuff happening there. So how did you get started with finding and founding the OmniARTS Foundation?
I mean, so it was definitely a long road. I started off as a grant writer. And that taught me a lot. I was interning for someone who's my dear friend now, Bora Yoon, through the Sorrell Foundation for Women in Music. And I was learning a lot about, her rig and just how she kind of handled her life as a composer and a sound artist and the grant application process. And so that got me into grant writing. And I came from, writing and creative writing and technical writing. And so And that was a skill. Like you went to MSM, you know, like John Pagano was holding it down, but like humanities was not the emphasis. Like,
No.
you know, no, no.
No.
So I felt like, yeah, exactly. So I felt like this is a skill I really want to keep up. And so I was doing that, and I started grant writing for MESS, which was, you know, I don't know if you got to see it. Did you perform with MESS actually?
I didn't perform with MESS, but I know of MESS, which is a cool concept.
Oh my God, I loved that organization. Lachlan, Glenn, and Ben Bliss's baby, and they were just doing, you know, like really cool, really wonderfully programmed, thoughtfully programmed, like multiculturally programmed classical or like concert music, you know, and they were doing this in smaller venues. So you'd be like a couple feet away from the singer. And you know, like as somebody who's sung an opera chorus, like there's nothing quite like having other people resonate your own bones. You're like, wow, how are you doing this, you magical weirdos? Like, you know, and MESS was that. And it was like that in a really approachable way. And so I was grant writing for MESS for a little while. And that just kind of gave me the final push to just say, all right, I've been sitting on this idea of wanting to create a place where I could both commission people and we could produce these events that are like never before seen events, where it's like basically kind of taking the concept of what I do with records, but applying it to other people. Like it's not my own personal venture, you know, and that was a main really important thing for me for OmniARTS was like, I believe in this stuff, but I also believe in the power of artists. I believe in the power of artists to talk in a language that is understood by everybody, no matter what tongue you speak, you know? And I feel like more often than not, when I talk to people, they're like, oh yeah, I just dabble in this. Like, I'll never forget Alice Chung, I'm calling you out right now.
Hey, Alice Chung, that's a homegirl. What's up?
Yes, she helps with OmniARTS a lot. There's lots of people from our community who have their hands in OmniARTS in a foundational way. Sophie Gonzalez is like my everything as far as putting things together. I love her. And just, you know, working with people like, you know, Jonathan Estabrooks was the co-producer of Lean on Me. And it was so his quality of production and his vision and his energy, you know, these things really made for it to be like this highly charged show and something we all could be really proud of. So it's OmniARTS is really only as strong as the collaborating artists. You know, it's like I can steer the ship in certain ways, but it's like I really want to just create a place where people can play, people can feel like they're heard. They can come to me with their dream projects and we can see them realized together. We can ask questions together, you know, and I love those dialogues where someone will be like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think about this? And I'm like, wait, I just learned about this hologram. So what if you do this hologram with this? And it, you know, it just snowballs like that. And that's how you get corporate sponsorships. That's how you actually appeal to grant makers. That's how you start forging partnerships with presenters. And, you know, all of this starts to happen as a result of people just being open-minded, and especially about classical arts. There's, you know, like we were talking before, like that notion of correctness, I think makes a lot of artists feel like I can't do anything unless it's this linear path, you know?
Right.
And that's just not true. That's
not true.
Not true. It's just not. And it's like, it's like one thing for me to be like, no, friend, that's not true. It's another thing for me to be like, no, friend, that's not true. Here's a place where you can create. Here's your budget. Go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was calling out Alice Chung before because Alice, I'll never forget, we were playing Pictionary at Central City. And this girl just draws like the most beautiful illustration of a lobster. Not anything to just draw out of your and I was like, Alice,
Queen,
what are you hiding from us? Like, and Nathaniel Lanasa, I don't know if do you know Nathaniel?
I don't think so. Beautiful
pianist and visual artist. And there's people who are photographers and people who do what you do, you know, with this beautiful presentation and social media and communication. And it's like all of these skills, I feel like have a place in our storytelling. But they're not always championed by the industry, because of the, you know, artist being a cog on someone else's wheel rather than the wheel itself.
Wow, wait. Say that again because that was deep. The artist, it's instead of the artist being a cog, okay, on someone else's wheel, it's the artist being the wheel themselves. Ooh, quote that, honey. And you can spell the name right, okay? Because that was fab.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit because you mentioned records, right?
Yeah.
And it's I was trying to find some tea on records, and it's been kind of like a low key kind of
It's super underrated.
thing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can give us a little bit of tea. Oh, and also before we actually get to that, sorry, my camera is shaking over here. But before we get to that, I might know a hologram guy, so we'll talk after.
Yes. Oh my God.
And he's an opera donor, so
What?
we'll talk after.
Thank you. I would very much appreciate that. I love it. We're so like 2021 in this moment. We're like, I got a hologram guy for you. Don't worry. It's not like a flower. It's not an event planner. It's a hologram guy.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
Records. Yeah. So yeah, records is I've been really, I mean, it's like honestly, it's like my life's work. So I'm kind of like, it's the beginning of what I know is just going to be kind of a long journey. Oh, Sophie was just at the performance that we did at the Morris Museum, which anyone listening to this, like, please, even if it's just virtually, go check out the exhibits that this museum has. Right now, it's they have a standing collection of mechanical musical instruments, which it's like you push a button and it's like actually recordings of Scott Joplin being played on these pianos, and like, it's like this it's amazing. They have this huge collection of automata and like, moving sculptures, kinetic art. So
oh my gosh, that is right up my alley.
Yeah, it's in New Jersey. It's like what is it, like a 40-minute train ride from Penn there?
Wow.
It's beautiful. And they're so warm there. They were so funny. The whole process of like basically talking to them about records and then getting it there, they were like so nervous. And
really? Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, because they're a Smithsonian affiliate, right? And they have this museum that's showcasing these like illustrious artists' work. And in comes me with this show that's like hardly ever been done, asking to throw like paint mediums and charcoal around their space, like literally in the museum. They were like, I don't know, girl, this sounds fun, but like maybe just that.
Wait, so tell us what is the experience like? What kind of happens?
So it starts with a prompt or me kind of having an idea about what I want to talk about, sociopolitically or from my own life, whatever's going on. It starts there. And for this show, it was dissonance. The museum, which, largely dissonance as it pertains to like anything outside of music is kind of like obscure. People don't really use that word a lot. And so it was their way of kind of pushing their very unique mission statement, which is art, sound, and movement.
Wow.
Which is a mission statement of a museum, right?
Wow. Okay. Love it.
Fascinating. And so they said dissonance, and I said dissonance messiaen.
Well,
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. And I've always I grew up singing in the church, and I feel like church music and just praise music in general is such a big part of my life and my family's life. And I think also the church is kind of like the most underappreciated sponsor of classical music in history. Like so 100%. So many of these amazing composers that we know and love were Kapellmeisters and music ministers, and that's how you make your living. And so I just feel like part of a lot of what I've been programming art song wise for myself has been a tribute to that legacy. And so dissonance, this show was basically exploring dissonance as it pertains to faith, like the Catholic faith. Yeah.
That's deep. I got chill bumps. That's like a deep.
Really? Yeah.
That is a deep thought. Dissonance as it relates to the Catholic Church.
Yep. Yes.
Ooh. Okay.
and just the history of like the fact that like I'll show you my artist statement at some point. It was funny because most artist statements are like, I use this material and I do this thing. And I was like, okay, it's 17th century England. Thomas Tallis has just wrote this motet. Like, you know, and,
I love it.
yeah. So it's, I love coming from like a history perspective, but basically I think it's fascinating that we hear sounds and we're like, oh, you know, that tritone means the devil. So therefore, no. You know, it's just so, and then you have somebody like Messiaen who there's tritones all over the music. It's augmented, it's wide, it's chord clusters, it's all of his modes of limited transportation like on top of each other. Just sounds like constellation like, you know? And so basically it was just featuring the music of Thomas Tallis and Olivier Messiaen. And we started off with speakers playing a Thomas Tallis motet. And then we went into some Messiaen songs. And I was finishing a sculpture that I made and a painting that I made that were representative of each of the songs that I was going to perform on top of them.
Whoa.
Like kind of. So like, for example, the sculpture is huge. Storing this thing has been the bane of my existence last week. I'm feeling tight about it. But yeah, it basically, the sculpture is like this giant plywood box. Actually, I can put it in our chat here if you wanted to pull it up.
Oh my
it's
gosh,
kind of like, let me try to see if I could share it with you somehow. But yeah, basically it's like a 5 foot by 7 foot sculpture. You'll have to tell me, Elliott, how I can share it with you if there's any way.
If you put it in, well, do you want to share it with me specifically, or do you want to share it with?
Oh, we can share it. We can share it. You know.
So if you click comments,
okay,
it's like it's a link, yeah.
Oh yes, I see this. Okay.
Yep, and then you post it in a comment, and it will share. So now we all can experience it together.
Very good. Wait, okay, but I don't have a little
maybe
thing where I could put. I don't have.
JK.
I know. Okay. Sorry, guys.
You send it to me in private chat, and I'll post it in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Sorry to kind of.
No, this is great because you're one of the first. You are the first person to ever like want to present something to the audience in this way, and it's great because I think a lot of times we kind of get stuck in like I enjoy interacting with the people watching too, and I think sometimes it gets very like so I think it's fabulous. I think it's really cool.
Oh, thank you. So I mean, listen, this show happened on Monday, right? So that's
yes, honey.
Like that's partially why it's been so under wraps. I couldn't attach it in the comments, so I sent it to your Facebook if that's okay. Okay, but,
that's great.
But yeah, but the sculpture, it has a lid, and basically it's a giant shoebox. And I, off of the idea of like, we all kind of keep our most prized possessions and our sense of home and our sense of self sometimes in these little boxes. So, so I made a big box and it's representative of home. And so it actually references things that are built in Justin and my, home in Harlem. But it's, Messiaen wrote this song for his wife. It's called The City That Sleeps You. And he wrote this after she, basically after having like 13 blissful years of marriage, minus the few years that he was in an internment camp as a prisoner of war, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah. Claire was a beautiful violinist and composer, and she went to have surgery and had amnesia from that point on to the rest of her life.
Wow.
So all of a sudden this, woman who is like his everything and has they have all these beautiful memories together, they're gone,
Wow.
And so that from that came the poem, The City That Sleeps You.
Wow.
That
is like, honey. She's deep.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. The City That Sleeps You.
Right. And that's Messiaen, these were these words to his wife. And so for me, records, like the way that we approach records or the way that I specifically do, is like I listen to the music and I think, what colors am I seeing? You know, is this high contrast? Is this low contrast? What medium is it? Is it charcoal? Does it have texture? Is it jagged? Does it reflect light? Is it iridescent or is it matte? Is it, you know, and I ask myself all these questions of the music. And then I compose the artistic composition from that and for the sake of storytelling. So yeah, so it's kind of like,
it's hard if you hear me like tip tapping on the keyboard, but I'm posting for everyone watching. I'm posting these pictures. They're only going to be up here during this. Okay, I'm gonna give them like 15 minutes because they're private pictures. Okay, so they're going away in 15 minutes. Is that okay with you, Amanda?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So check out, if you are on Aural Compass Projects and you're watching, open a new tab, go to the page, and you'll be able to see them on Facebook for 15. Okay, going away at 6:45. So, I mean, looking at the artwork, is it the artwork you're doing it while you're singing or between, like it's like a whole immersive thing that's happening?
Yeah, it's actually that's the point of the performance, and that's why it's called records, because it's making a visual recording of the live performance.
Oh my gosh. Wow. We were, because I had just, it's so funny. I had just mentioned this. We were talking before the show and I was like, yeah, it's interesting that like you can make like singing, the only way that you can really record it is if you use a recording, right? But artwork, you can like feel it. It's tangible. And that's so amazing that see, I told you we are here.
Oh, right. We're just here for each other in this way. I love it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's basically like, you know, as analog as you get. It's like, we're not even going to use sound waves, y'all. We're just going to like map the trajectory of the storytelling. And also I try to choose mediums and basically things that I can add during the performance that have a meaning to the storytelling. So basically it's kind of like 3 stages. It's like the first stage of records is me building this set based on the music that has the intention of being something that's performed upon. You know, then the second stage is the live performance where it gets finished. So the painting and the sculpture were preliminarily built a year ago, and they lived at the museum unfinished for that whole year because of COVID.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was weird. It was like, I was like, all right, I'm okay with this, I guess, because you know, I have the final composition in my head, but like it has to be finished in performance. So it's kind of like weird to just let something in its first stage sit. And it feels like, honestly, I think a lot about like voyeurism in opera and in performance work in general, and how visual artists actually don't really break down the fourth wall very often, because it's like they don't really invite you into their studio to watch the process. And this is like as naked as you get. It's like, you look at it before as its own thing, watch me finish it right in front of your eyes, and then, you know, and then after, it's displayed with the final piece and video footage from the performance. So you can basically put on a headset and watch on the screen the artwork being made.
Wow. How amazing and beautiful is that, though?
Yeah, thank you. It's like I'm so geeked about it, because I feel like in today's day, artists are pushed all the time to share half-baked products. And I feel really strongly about this, just taking my time and like not being in a rush. Like I'm in a rush to tell this story. I'm in a rush to like direct my friends in this. I'm in a rush to like find the Elliott Paige version of records. Do you know what I mean? And there's actually one that I'm already starting to kind of like dream up with Simone Powell. You know Simone.
Oh,
I know. I love her.
The voice.
I know. The voice, the human, the spirit, like it's all there for me. Like, and it's such a joy to be in the position that I'm in, which is just knowing and loving intimate, knowing a lot of really wonderful artists that have amazing instruments. And I think of the body, honestly, also as kind of like a sculpture, a sound sculpture in itself. And I like the idea of skin and just the way that our hair and skin and our presentation looks as being a piece itself. So I'm actually, in future kind of iterations of records, we're going to be curating the audience as well, so that they're a part of the composition.
Wow.
So it's like kind of wild stuff.
So immersive and beautiful, and like so much of what we need going forward into like the classical space, and breaking down some of the division between it, because I feel like a lot of times we think about like what these different spaces mean separately, but not how we can combine them together, right? Like, how can we create this beautiful Venn diagram that lays on top of each other and creates not just a seed, right? Not just a circle, but creates a flower, creates the petals that interact together to create that living thing.
I love that too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So speaking of performances, if you have been watching my show, you know that I ask my guests to present 2 to 3 questions just about whatever they wanted to ask. And so I loved all of Amanda's questions. And I'm going to ask the first one. So the first one is, what is your favorite performance experience thus far, and why? Repertoire, company, and I include a coin. I could put coin and put LOL, but honey, that's tea, because we need to talk frankly, okay? Because that's real. Yeah, it's an important part of what we do. We are artists, and a lot of times we're underrepresented and underpaid. Yeah. So we need our coins. So I think that I had to include it in there because that was so funny. But so what would be yours? What would be, or maybe I should go. Give you a minute.
Yeah, you go. I'm so curious.
So this is interesting. I actually think I thought about it a lot, and I was thinking, would it be like my first role that I did as a solo, as you know, my first solo role, which was an amazing experience, but also I feel like it was something where it was super fulfilling musically, but this experience that I'm gonna say was fulfilling musically, emotionally, spiritually, in a way that I didn't know I could be fulfilled. So this would be I did a tour of Porgy and Bess in 2016 in Germany. So we did a 5-city tour over 2 months and did a show a day. We did 7 shows a week.
Barkheimer?
Barkheimer. Yeah. The famous, infamous.
It's just like my entire family has been a part of that.
Oh yeah. You know the tea. So basically we get to Dresden, and I had never been out of the United States before.
Wow.
So I was like already kind of like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into, honey? I done went through JFK. This thing is that is an experience on its own. And so we get there, and it was my first time ever doing Porgy, and it was also my first time ever doing a show with a pretty much all Black cast.
Yeah.
And there was something about it that is just, like you said, so special and unique to have so many people with similar experiences as you.
Yeah.
And build this like familial bond where there's like ups and downs. You know what I mean? Where it's like, and it's interesting. I've never been around at one time that many classically trained Black people.
Yeah.
Like ever. And so it was
that caliber too. I know people who are on the tour, and it's just such high caliber musicians.
Yeah, it's insane. And why I say it fulfilled me spiritually is because during that time, I felt like I was still trying to find my own identity as like a Black man, and just trying to figure out like, what does that mean, you know? And so many of the conversations that I had on that tour with people opened my brain and taught me to grow and to learn and to experience and to nurture myself in a way that I had never experienced before. And then it also like showed me, because we were international, right? It showed me that there's so much more to this world than I knew in little Virginia. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such a different.
Where are you from?
I'm from Hampton, Virginia. So like Southern Virginia, you know, near Virginia Beach. Yeah. So that's and so it's interesting that I got to experience that and with such a great cast and group of people and a way of bonding that I just never had experienced before. And I have experienced similarly again. Every time I do a Porgy, it's like a family reunion. And that's kind of like low-key one of the only reasons I still do it, and for the coin. But because there's not really many other opportunities where you get to have such a not just Black cast, but such a diverse cast.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like even just in life, I've never had as diverse a cast as a Porgy performance, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I crave that need more often because I want experiences. And I think it's interesting too, because, you know, as many people say, you know, Black people aren't a monolith, right? So I was able to see how so many different people ended up at the same point that I was in, doing this tour, and of all ages and of all experiences, and, you know, but everyone is at like this caliber.
Yeah.
And it was just so, it really just opened my mind to see that there's like so much more than, you know, let me follow the young artist track. I mean, even though, you know, that's what I did, but but to see like
to have you for that, but you know, like there actually is a career out there, and there's a career with like all of the other wizards and witches from Hogwarts that are just like waiting to, you know, connect with you about your house, you know. Yeah,
it's so amazing, and that's got to be one for the books for sure.
That's beautiful. And
what about you? Oh, wait, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, isn't that also, you talked about like cultivating experiences. I just want to cultivate experiences. And I think that's really healthy. Like something that the pandemic has also illuminated is like everyone being like, I don't want more bad things to happen. I don't want to have bad experiences. I just want good experiences. And like a big part of dissonance and a lot of the things that I've been thinking about is the fact that like dissonance doesn't exist without consonance.
There it is.
You know, like we just have to we have to cultivate the bad. We have to cultivate the good. We have to cultivate it all. And we're so fortunate as artists and creators and administrators to be in positions to like regurgitate that and actually have it as talking points. So I think having, you know, witnessed the dynamic on that particular tour and just with that group of people, I mean, I felt so warm and welcome. I wasn't even a part of the show, you know. I still felt like so, you know, everybody just goes out of their way to make you feel included and to share of their life, because what it means to be a classical musician and specifically Black in America and as a classical musician, that is such a specific experience. So to be able to find people who have gone through that and are navigating that, I think is just a wonderful byproduct of Porgy that Gershwin probably didn't anticipate, but it's like, like, he just tried. Like his Jewish self just tried to go to the bayou and glean what he could.
That's sweet.
Right? Like, but like he's, you know, he tried to communicate to truth and beauty to the best of his ability, and look at all of the light that he's brought because of that, you know. And I think that's all of our role now is like, what's our truth and beauty story, and how are we going to tell it together for the betterment of all of us and the world that we're leaving behind, you know?
For sure. I agree.
Yeah.
What is your favorite performance experience? Tell me about it.
You know, musically, I have to say like the last opera that I did Before the pandemic was Baroque, and it was Callisto and La Callisto. And I just love that repertoire. It's like jazz in that you learn these kind of melismas, and then based on what's happening, you can do whatever you feel. And for me, that's like, ooh, this is really cool, And the texture is a little thinner. So it's very interesting for me vocally because I train and I work with rock singers in Asbury Park. And like kind of multi-genre singers from a classical vantage point. And I feel like Baroque repertoire more than any other repertoire in the classical canon, with maybe the exception of certain art song, like it really calls for you creating lots of different colors and shades and techniques with your instrument. And I love that. I love feeling like a percussive instrument,
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that, because I feel like a lot of times people think Baroque and they think like it is Baroque, okay? Like
like we're all too irregular, y'all.
Right. They're like she's penniless. But really it is something that in a weird way was before its time, but it was its time. But like we went back because you know what I mean? There's just so much more space there. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. That's like what it is with like sexuality and with like multicultural vantage points. It's like we don't realize that like in the 17th century, like the Mongolian Empire, they had a whole like they weren't just these Mongols that like trampled into other people's territory and wreaked havoc. They actually had an infrastructure, and they had religious officials from multi-cultures come and discuss theological ideas. Like that's not new. This has been happening. Also, like gayness, queerness, that's been happening. Let's look at
period. Okay.
Okay. Like, and let me tell you, like Callisto is the first character that I've ever sung that is gay. Like she's just gay. And from a female perspective in opera, like that's usually like a directorial choice, not necessarily a character trait.
Very much so.
It was cool. I felt like, wow, look at this opera. This is 400 years old. And they're talking about this stuff that still is squeamish to some people today. Like, what's up with that? And I love that opera does that. But it's like, yeah, but we're 400 years old, so grow up. Like that's it's like that's like the underline. But I think honestly, my favorite was actually at MSM. It was Pasquale, and it was the Pasquale that I did with Justin and with Hide.
Oh my gosh. Listen.
So much fun.
Listen, the voices, okay?
It was and Tim Lanigan was our Ernesto, and Tom Morocco, who is just like, I adore him. He's Tom, and he just does his thing. And his thing as it pertains to Donizetti and this like hilarious work. It's such a funny piece. And we did it basically kind of in the round or like the half round because it was in AIDS. Right. It was really intimate, and like it felt like comedy Shakespeare rather than like high opera. And I feel like kind of that's what the piece was intended to be like.
It very much gives that.
Yeah, like and like just being able to be working with my husband who's like made a character choice and so we were like very clearly like friends. It was just so fun. And I feel like that's the beauty of school is like in companies you can kind of like make friends and really forge these really amazing bonds, and that I value and have definitely experienced in my career. But there's nothing like starting off with your best friends, and being like, we're going to sing an opera together, y'all. Like, and it's Donizetti. It's like so fun. Great music. And
like beautiful, but like fun and beautiful, not like beautiful and boring. Because honey, that happens a lot in opera, girl. Snooze fest. Beautiful lines. Look, gowns, beautiful gowns.
I know. Beautiful like jewels you'll ever see. And for 8 hours.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's actually where a part of records is coming. That's one thing records is trying to solve. The performances are shorter. And the
Mm-hmm.
program like moves kind of fast and through much like a variety of repertoire through speakers and live. And it's like a combination of a lot of things just to keep it a little more digestible. Because I feel like once you go and you experience a really like skilled singer right in front of you, you want to go see an opera. You want to go see a recital. You want to go, but you have to have that experience first where they're there and you're not there for a 4 to 5 hour time investment, you know?
Because listen,
I know.
we do it. It's our job. And I'm telling you, I don't want to sit through 4 hours of opera. I love it, but I don't want to sit through 4 hours of it.
I know.
You know?
I know.
And Lord knows if I had nothing else to do, I probably still wouldn't want to sit through a 4 hour opera. But yeah, but in the time period,
an opera singer, right?
and you know, in the time period, like it was not like you were just like there sitting for 4 hours. Like you could go in and out. It was like a more of depending on the opera, more of an open space of like, you know, it wasn't necessarily about the opera. It was about, for the artists, you know, it was about the opera. But for the audience, it wasn't always about that. It was about the connections that you're making within that space. And I think that there's a way now where we can continue to make those connections in the space, like as the audience making connections, but also while connecting to what's happening on the stage instead of it being a separate thing, right?
Yes.
Bridging those points together.
Totally. And I think that AR and VR is a really interesting answer to that, because we have the opportunity as companies to film these productions from multiple vantage points. And so like, I love the idea of somebody buying into the experience of watching the show as a director, as a performer, as a person on the crew. So you're not actually watching the show, you're like seeing kind of the sidelines of the aria, and then you have your task. And then like, it's just—
Oh, that is dope. Wow.
Right?
Okay. Trademark that. Listen, y'all heard it first. If I see anybody with it, I'm coming for your gig, because that's fabulous. Wow.
Right over here.
Oh my gosh. That is, wow. That is like low-key groundbreaking. Wow.
But like, it's happening, you know, and I feel like people are interested to go and experience the real tangible thing just live without any bells and whistles. But I don't think that I really hate it when people talk about innovation in our field as a bunch of bells and whistles. It's like, there's the museum, and in order to uphold the museum and respect the museum, we have to approach this as a dialogue between artists and audiences living today. You know? And that the conversation, there's so much has happened this past year, you know.
Yeah.
So much. Like, we're all talking, especially in the industry, about how that affects our industry and our conceptualizations of ourselves and others, and what that means with the company. And now they're trying to fill these positions based on, you know, who knows what. Like, and it makes you think, like, okay, am I getting these positions because I'm a woman, or am I getting these positions because I'm, you know, a person of color, you know, or am I getting it because of my talent? And I feel like we need to start approaching this as like, yes, you're getting it because of both.
Right.
All. Yeah. And from companies' perspectives, being truthful to that, really not filling these positions unless you feel like this is the right person for this job. Like, you know, and also, I just think it's an exciting time to be doing this art form and to be alive in general. And like, thank God we all are.
Okay.
Crazy year after this crazy year. And it's like, it's time, you know, you're not in school anymore. No one is holding your hand. You don't have to work for these companies. You all are the CEOs and founders of your own business. That is you know, and like, just start to go forth with that concept into the world of technology and art and multidisciplines and organizations like OmniARTS and Oral Compass projects who want to help you do that, you know?
Speaking of, actually, I forgot to ask you earlier, how can people get involved with OmniARTS or records or any of the, can you just really quickly, like, I mean, obviously go to the website, but like, is there a way that people can get involved, maybe that aren't artists too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so like from a nonprofit perspective, everyone's like donations, donations. But I feel really strongly about going outside of the traditional model of relying upon grant makers and ticket sales to survive. So OmniARTS is innovating and developing projects and products that help artistic innovation. And I feel like the biggest thing that we need is that when the time comes to call for donations, we're actually going to be starting soon an ambassador program. So basically, if you are an ambassador of OmniARTS, all you're going to get is like an email that says, hey, we're about to launch this fundraiser, please send it out to your networks. And it's basically your like, $0 like pledge to just do your part in helping the organization grow. And that for me, like that's everything. And if you're in a position to give, great. But like most artists I know, especially after the year we've had, are not. And and for me, it's just like, are you willing though to kind of just like send a blast to your mailing list and say this is happening? Like, and so that's the best thing they can do. So if you go to the contact page on OmniARTS, there's also a volunteer page. Kind of sign up for that and just drop us a line, let us know you're interested in being an ambassador, or on Facebook, you can send a private message on Facebook or Instagram. We'll see all of that. So yeah.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So I wanted to move on to our next question. So this is for me, it at first when I first thought of it, I was like, oh my God, this is a deep question. But actually, I don't think it is. From what I came up with my answer. So that question is, what is opera?
Yeah.
What is opera? So the textbook definition is it's a story through song, right? But all musical experiences are stories through song, right?
Yeah.
All sung experiences, even non-sung experiences with music, are stories through song.
Totally.
So for my answer to this question, I believe opera is actually that, a story through song told with classically trained voices using the implementations of the I had it earlier today, using the traditions, using classical music traditions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is, for me, it's broad enough that you can put in using classical traditions as well as, right. And then, thinking like, it's not just that, but that's, for me, is the basis. Because like, what's the difference between Don Giovanni and I don't know, Hamilton, right? Hamilton barely has dialogue, but yet we have operas like Zauberflöte that has so much fucking dialogue. So it's like, how do you start to not separate, but how do you start to classify, right? Yeah. And it's something that I've thought about for a very long time, and I've asked colleagues, and I've put it on Facebook, and I've asked people, and I think the only difference is the technique. It's just the technique that you use when singing. And sometimes we can incorporate non-traditional or classical techniques into our singing. But I think the basis of an operatic style is the way that we sing, and having that thought of, I could sing this if I weren't mic'd.
Yeah, totally.
Totally. Yeah.
That's classical technique. And that's what I love teaching classical technique, because I feel like it's the foundation of everything else you want to build and implement. Mm-hmm. It's not the only technique. There is really a different technique when you're singing rock, when you're singing like, oh my God, I can't tell you how much like sternum stuff we do. Vocal fry stuff. Like it's like,
get in.
Oh yeah. It's like vanilla guitar, like, yeah.
I'm with you.
Yes. I can tell you've been classically trained.
Well, I also teach. So, and most of my students, most of my students don't sing classically. So, adapting our classical techniques for the non-classical singer. Ooh, write a book.
I opera is so fascinating too, because it's, I mean, think what you will about the man, but Wagner had a really wonderful word for what that is, which is OmniARTS' motto, Gesamtkunstwerk, which is total artwork. It's a total artwork. I think also the difference between opera and, you know, other styles of theater, whether it involves speaking and singing or not, as we just discussed, like lots of operas do involve quite a lot of speaking. It's for me, it's the voice as an instrument. You know, it's like an emphasis on the voice at being like this acoustic instrument that is a member of the orchestra. Wow. You know, I think that's definitely a difference. But it's a question that I think anybody who is an opera singer really should ask themselves. And for me, it's evolved. Like I'm that weirdo that likes to go to the fundament always. So I'm constantly like, okay, well, if I'm gonna ask what's opera, what's art? You know,
right.
Art, I'm gonna ask what are we doing? What's the universe? What are we? You know, so it's kind of like. And art is, you know, psychophysical values of pursuit of psychophysical values and expression for our own sake. And opera, I'm like, but that's Ray Aventero, y'all, my teacher, my mentor. But he asked me a lot of these questions, and like I'd kind of fumble through the answer. And I just think it's an important one to always ask, like, what is it right now? What was it before? How is it evolving? What's really the core of what it is? And for me, what the core of opera is multidisciplinary work. It is interdisciplinary work. It like, and it's not an opera. It's an art song recital. If you don't have all those like, you know, costumers and orchestra but it's not like a linear version of that. You know, if you don't have one element of that or it's recorded, it doesn't not make it an opera. Right. You know, but I think the emphasis of the voice as an instrument. And for me, the trajectory of opera is really fascinating. Rochelle Yonk is a great person to talk to about that.
What a queen, honey. If you wanna learn how to do well, just about anything.
Jazz voice, right? Bel canto boot camp is in your future. Yes.
Listen. Yeah. Fabulous teacher.
Yeah. And she was talking to me once about, and I kind of knew this just from like loving history and like the trajectory of how that pertains to our art form. But you know, Rochelle was talking to me. She's like, the singers ran the whole show. It wasn't like director. Well, it wasn't like producer, right. Director, but presenter, producer, director, you know, conductor, singer, orchestra. It was not that. It was singer, the conductor, the director. Everybody took their cues from the singer because we are the only member of that orchestra using words. Yeah. Wow. You know? Wow. And so it's like, I feel like as an art form, because of the nature of how it needs to be produced, especially in a capitalist society, you know, we're kind of forced to put artists, the singers, sometimes at the lowest totem pole. And I really feel like the art form is not being served by that. And we really, as all companies, need to really take a step back and start to say, how do we champion these singers rather than treat them like a commodity that should, you know, fight over scraps of meat? You know, it's not right. It's too far away from the origin of the art form, in my opinion. Wow. You know?
That's beautiful. I think it's really amazing to think of opera as non-linear and put it into more of a 4D, 5D space that has multiple dimensions. You see it at face value as linear, but then if you turn it, you see that it has all of these other facets to it.
It's like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful way of saying it because, you know, the kaleidoscope, it has these chambers that have these specific things in them. But the more you turn it and the more you adjust it and the way that you hold it, there's so many different things that can be created from that one set of, you know, little, I don't even know what they would be called because they're round, but you know.
Whatever's in
Wombs.
so we'll program a whole art song recital around it. We'll make a kaleidoscope skull.
Listen,
okay.
Okay, that was actually fab. I'm so here for that.
Like, why
So,
not?
speaking of sight or, things being seen, your last question I thought was so kind of like, for me, it's funny because of my answer, but but I think it's interesting. It's an interesting question. So let's ask it.
Okay.
What is the best thing that you've ever seen? Not just art or performance, but your favorite image.
Wow.
And I took this in a different kind of way. So you'll see. I'm going to let you answer first this time.
Oh, I get to go first? Okay.
Yes, please.
I'm going to be real cheesy about it. I'm sorry for everybody at home. The best thing I have ever seen is a sunrise and a sunset.
Oh, my favorite.
I know.
Two of my favorite things.
I know. And like specifically the way that like light plays a role in those and the change of color. Honestly, like everything that I create, if you look in the sculpture too, you'll see those little like prickly balls and things that are all over New Jersey, which is my hometown state. Like I feel like there's a certain element of, whether you believe in God or the creator or just like the universe and connectivity and all things, whatever you believe, there's nothing I can make that is that magnificent. There's nothing I can make that is as magnificent as a human body resonating. There's no color I can conjure or mix that is really going to be that sunset. And so a huge part of what I like to produce and what I'm like chasing all the time is like the closest I can get to either incorporating those things or referencing those things. So the color combination is all things that I've seen in nature and, texturally that I feel like is around. Yeah.
Wow. That golden ratio, baby.
Yeah.
We can't create that.
Yeah, it's just there. It's there for us if we wanted to realize that it's there,
Wow. I'm glad that you went there because mine is actually really weird, I think, but also beautiful. So I realized, I don't have many like number one things. Like most of my favorite things, I have like 3 or 2. It's very hard for me to just choose one because I feel like who can just choose one of anything? Like, what's your favorite color? Well, it depends on my mood, but I have 3. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
That's how my mind works. But one thing that I found beautiful, and I've always thought about this image for years. The first time I noticed it was, I know where I was. I was at home in Hampton in our old house. This had to have been 2015, maybe 2014, something like that.
Okay.
And I closed my eyes and I looked at the sun. I mean, like the bright, shining sun, no clouds, just sun. And the red through my eyelids, the red color that you can see, it's just like the most beautiful sensation to feel the warmth of the sun and to see like the fact that your body is creating this image through skin, through layers, right?
I know, it's like ridiculous.
It's insane.
Every day, and it's there,
It's insane. That's probably one of the best things I've seen. That the color that you see when you close your eyelids and look at the sun.
It's so crazy. Well, before I go there, it's like beautiful, like so beautiful. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's crazy that you say this because forever I've wanted to do a painting series trying to capture that.
Oh my God. You're the first person that I've ever said that to and is like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Really?
Yeah. Most people are like, that's fucking weird.
We're more visual artists. We're very particular kind of breed.
Oh
I
my
like
gosh.
most of my friends will just send me like pictures of circles because they know I'm like love concentric circles all over the
Oh,
place. It's like that level of visual weird. But so I think like we should definitely talk about maybe doing something with that and how it pertains to like I love that concept as it pertains to, you know, the word Inish in German song, and kind of this idea of like the most like the greatest realization we can have is inward and what that looks like, you know?
Wow.
So maybe we can do something off of that and try to capture. It's hard. It's really hard.
It's hard.
And I feel like the shapes, yeah, like the shapes that you see if you close your eyes. I mean, everyone could do this with us at home. Like there's like lots of texture, there's lines, there's different kind of gradients of it, you know? So it'd be like, from a fine art perspective, a challenge to like what medium would you even use, you know? But why not?
It's so interesting. I think also like it's the thing for me too is it's not just the color, right? It's the experience too, where you draw back on like the fact that I can remember the moment when I realized that that moment, right? I know exactly what it felt like when the sun touched my skin and how it felt with the wind. Like it was like a self-realization of like, I am there. There's so much, everything is connected and I'm bigger than than I think that I am. And I'm also smaller than I think I am at the same time.
Totally.
And so for me, it was just like,
wow,
that feeling of, so maybe there's something there with that too, is that it's not just about what you see, but it's also how you feel and how you interpret it.
Totally. And like
It's interesting.
What opportunity are we creating for audiences to have similar experiences for themselves? You know, like it's like I feel like companies can get more creative about being like, all right, we're going to go outside, we're going to sit, we're going to close our eyes, we're going to direct you to do something a little bit, and then what happens as a result of that minor direction is your own, you know? And I feel like us coming from an artistic perspective, like calling upon these really potent memories and why was the heat prevalent? You know, why was that red, like that orange, yellowy red? Like how is that a part of my skin, the pigment in my skin, you know? Like I feel like these are just exciting things to think about. And then all of a sudden, like I talk about this with my students all the time. And I keep talking about them because I'm like came from teaching today, but you know, I feel like half of them are like now reflecting back to me. They're like, I'm like always looking at people's eyes and I'm like looking for colors. And it's like, we all are living in this majesty every day. And yet sometimes we feel so like it's not worth it. And like, so like it's, you know, so too hard, and it's never too hard. Nothing ever stays the same. There's that amazing Charlie Chaplin quote, you know, of his like, what was it, like 14 things or something he wanted to leave, but it's worth checking out. But I love that image, and if you want to run with it, you know where to run to. I will be here waiting for you.
We'll chat. I'll tell you about the holograms, and we'll talk about the color of the red. We'll combine them together.
There we go.
Oh my goodness. That was really something for me actually, because that was beautiful. That was like, you got it. You got it. Wow, love that. So yeah, okay, so we're about to wrap up. I'm gonna let you go because remember, everyone, this is not our normal time. This is later than usual. So I might actually do more of these because I kind of liked this like afternoon tea situation happening. You know, we had a little brunch tea, and now we're having afternoon tea, and I'm kind of living for it.
Just like an evening, like a nightcap tea.
Yeah, a nightcap tea, hot toddies, if you will.
I love it. I love it.
I just want to thank you so much for coming in and being open and being just having so many different perspectives to share, and for accepting perspectives that a lot of other people may not be able to share in or be able to understand their existence, right?
Yeah.
I want to also thank you for the work that you're doing with OmniARTS and with records and with just your own personal work and teaching. It really is beautiful, and I'm learning so much about you as an artist and as a person, and I cannot wait to get together and really like just talk more, because I think this was so beautiful.
It's a Pandora's. I can feel energy-wise between the two of us. Like, we've known each other for a while, but it's just been like we're always on the move.
It's always like, hey girl, bye girl. Like very that. And I feel it. And I think that our audience feels that too. Hey Justine.
Justin, he was so awesome. He helped me move all this stuff in. Like, you guys should see like what's happening around here. Just like endless like paintings, and I can actually show you one if you want to see like the actual.
Yes, please. Would you mind?
No, not at all. And I guess before I do that, I just want to thank you, Elliott. This I think is such an amazing project and so smart, creating really open dialogue and an opportunity for us all to share in a way that doesn't feel like self-promoting. It's like, let's just actually talk about what's happening,
Exactly.
I think it's awesome. And I love what you're doing with Aural Compass Projects too. And Michael Lewis, you guys are just, it's all these people our age, being like, we're going to do this. I love it. I'm so here for it. And I just feel like, any way that records or OmniARTS can help either your personal missions or Aural Compass projects, like, where to find me.
For sure.
My studio buried with all these paintings.
Thank you.
Right. But speaking of which, this is one that I can show you now because I'm about to take it to the stretcher, which is like, so normally you have canvas that like, you stretch before you paint. And I'm like, that's not going to work for performing on top of. So I stretch them actually after the paintings are done.
Wow.
This one was made off of The Poet's Echo, that song cycle by Benjamin Britten. So I don't know if you can see. It's like,
yes.
Giant.
Also, if you look at our poster, you will see this featured.
That's what it is. I know. I couldn't really.
I didn't know it was so big.
And so
oh my
Elliott,
gosh,
these are the smaller paintings of the collection. Like the other ones.
Wait, those are the small.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The one that, because think about it, like if you're gonna like perform on top of it, it needs to have its own presence. Yeah.
Right.
And so the one that you shared, Resurrection, the one that has the stone mosaic, which tells the story of like Jesus being resurrected through Messiaen's music. So the idea is like, the footprints are supposed to kind of look like somebody emerging from those ashes and then vanishing.
Wow.
That one is 10 feet long.
Listen, pictures do not do it justice. Okay, we need something beside it for scale. We need like a little Pringles can or something, a phone, something, so we know what is the scale, honey. Because
these are huge. Justin can tell you he helped me move them all this week, and it's it's going to be, I think, exciting when things return, because I'll actually be able to show this with you all in real life, and we're working on an iteration of records now that's called Records Finger Painting. So it literally
love that,
to contribute to the artwork.
That's incredible.
So there'll be stuff for sure, and I'm down to collaborate really with any of the people that I know and love. Like, we should just talk and see what songs are your thing and like how to translate that visually.
I love it. Also, be sure
check out OmniARTS.
Check out OmniARTS and check out Amanda Austin's work and everything that's going on with records. Just stay tuned, and thank you for sharing your beautiful spirit and time with us.
Elliott, thank you. It's really been a privilege. I can't wait to do it in person.
I know. Okay, you hang out. I'm gonna put you backstage, and we'll chat after. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
So thank you all so much for tuning in to What's the Tea with ACP. Oh my goodness, what an amazing talk we had today with Amanda Austin. I want to thank you all for watching again. Be sure to check out What's the Tea with ACP podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Definitely go and check out OmniARTS at the OmniArtsFoundation.com. And be sure to support your local artist, your artists working, whatever you may find that you can support and be of support to someone who is making art and making this world a more beautiful place. And we will send you off with What's the Tea with ACP.